We are born in sin because we are born atheists. We grow doubting the existence of God. We are, as babies, born as a member of the people of the flesh. This is our curse and our fate, and were we to continue on as we were born, we would remain separated from God. In other words, if nothing changed from when we were born until we died, we would be condemned. There has to be a fundamental intervention if we are to be saved. At some point we have to make a change in how we live and think. To be saved we must cease to live in the flesh and be reborn in the Spirit. These truths are not unknown to Christians, but too much seems to have been passed over for a comfortable Christian experience. The flesh and the Spirit are two distinct forms of man. The life of the flesh and the life of the Spirit are as distinct as the caterpillar and the moth. But even when the church understands the division between the life of the flesh and the life of the Spirit, we appear to stop short in seeing these two states of man as forming the foundation for two distinct realities. If the life of the Spirit is not compatible with the life of the flesh, then the church is a way of life, lived by those who live in the Spirit, cannot be compatible with the way of life of those who live in the flesh. If we are at peace with the world, how can we be following God? If we are truly living as the church, we will not be at peace with the ways of the flesh. There is enmity between us. There is enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. It is not a question of if there is division between those of God and those of Satan. The question is, how deep is this division? An even better question might be, how deep ought the chasm to be? For the division between the world and the church is meant to be total. Scripture does not talk about the sheep and the goats and one on the right and the other on the left, to give us a sense of being one with the world. The division goes so deep that the world talks about we the people, but the Bible talks about polarized groups. The question then becomes, how much can we, as Christians, engage with the fallen world? To what degree can we identify with them and share our lives with them and still be Christian? At this moment we could quote Scripture, and perhaps we ought, but even the devil can quote Scripture to suit his ends. It is assumed that any Scripture that could be quoted here is already known. If we are to build a people and a church that is separate from the world, we need a plan. This is made easy for us. We need only to look at what exists to know what not to do. A priori uses secular society as an inverse template on which to build the church. Our working hypothesis is that truth exists, that right and wrong exists. We believe that for every problem, there is a right answer. If this assumption is true, then for every problem there is an infinity of wrong answers. We need to know the difference. If there is no right and wrong, there are no questions. There cannot be a question if there is no right answer to it. If there is no right and wrong, there is no morality. Morality is predicated on there being a logical and analytical way to know right from wrong. If we have to be taught right from wrong, it is society that is to blame for the behavior of criminals. Every criminal can plead insanity because had he been taught right from wrong, he would not have broken the law. But if there is a right from wrong, and it is inherent, then of what use is the law? It is either the responsibility of society to guide and correct us, which makes society accountable for all criminal acts, or we know right from wrong, and the law is redundant and perhaps even counterproductive. If there is right and wrong, there must be a line dividing them. There cannot be a right and wrong if they are infinitely distant from each other and are separated by an infinity of moral gray. This conceptualization forces us to think in terms of relativism. Good and evil are opposites, but that does not make them infinites. Right and wrong are qualitatively distinct, not quantitatively divided. There is an important difference in these two types of conceptualizations. If good and evil are quantitatively divided, then in a practical sense all observable events are only right or wrong in a relativist sense. Nothing is pure evil in a physical universe, because there is no infinite good tied to a numerical absolute. Analytical absolutes are different. Something can be good or evil in an analytical universe because we are talking about conceptual categories. The only thing it takes to divide classes of things is a categorical absolute, i.e., something that is in one class of thing but not in another. To be good or to belong to that class of things that are good, there must be value attached to the good or service or object. When God declared His creation good, He meant it had sublime value. On the other hand, this value was not created by us and does not belong to us. This is important to understand. Gold does not have intrinsic value. There is no such thing as intrinsic value. Gold has the value we attach to it. A chest of gold in a floundering boat will be thrown overboard in favor of food and water. There are two factors impacting value. These are supply and demand. In a lifeboat, the demand is for food and water. There is little or no demand for gold. There is also considerable demand for security, and gold in a lifeboat can reduce the level of security felt by the passengers. If it takes a lot of work to find and mine gold, it will have a high value which will only be exacerbated as demand increases. When gold is used as a means of exchange, its demand increases exponentially, which can cause constrictions in supply. As a consequence, if one is gold, one can trade it for a different commodity which is losing value compared to gold, or retain one's gold and watch its value increase relative to other commodities. This tendency to hang on to the good and strong demand exacerbates its scarcity and the tendency to hoard it. This is why gold and other scarce commodities are not a good choice for use as money. Some call this hoarding of gold or other commodities investing, but in reality it is freeloading. The same phenomenon is visible in real estate. Housing is a community in high demand. Housing, in other words, is a scarce resource. But some people exacerbate the problem by investing in real estate. They may let the property sit empty or rent it out. In either case, they live off of the passive income stream. If the phrase does not make it clear, investors make money means of inflation on one hand and scarcity on the other. It is called euphemistically, making money work for you. In reality, investors exploiting the weakness in a system for all it is worth. In a more prosaic sense, what they do is freeload. This parasitism comes in many flavors. The commonality is a person who understands the weakness of the system and is not reticent about exploiting the weakness. The earth has value. We either add value or we subtract value. Those are the choices. Investors argue they add value by adding money to it, but money has no value. Money is a device for tracking value. It has no value of its own. Currency may have value because currencies are composed of assets, and assets may have value created by the differential between supply and demand. When supply is insufficient to meet demand, the price of the good or service will increase. But this rise in prices is inflation, not a true increase in value. The a priori Apologetic Church is not about hate. We simply love the book given to us by God. Our policies and programs reflect the will of God as expressed in His holy word. Apologetic is the work we do, explaining why we love Scripture. A priorians live by one rule: do not freeload. We abjure all forms of parasitism. Our policies and programs are focused on this priority. To understand better how together we can stop freeloaders and parasites, visit our website, https://apriorian.org. To summarize, we can own only what we create. A priorians make no claim on anything created by anyone else. The natural world is the creation and possession of God, and on this we make no claim.